Have you ever felt like your actions and your beliefs aren't aligning? Maybe you value honesty, but you find yourself lying to your kids about Santa Claus. Today, we're exploring how that uncomfortable feeling, known as cognitive dissonance, can actually become a catalyst for growth and stronger relationships. Welcome back, my friends, to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're talking about cognitive dissonance. And that's a psychological phenomenon that can really impact our relationships and our personal growth. It's that uncomfortable feeling when our beliefs and our behaviors clash. Or another way to say it, it's that feeling that doesn't really sit right when what we believe and what we do don't quite match up. So let's describe it in a few other ways, because I know for me personally, I just wasn't quite getting it when I was learning about cognitive dissonance and what it means and why it even matters. Some people might even refer to it as ambivalence, or those mixed feelings, or that internal conflict when those values and those beliefs are clashing. That's that inner turmoil or that emotional distress from those conflicts. I'll give you a couple examples of what ambivalence looks like, and then we'll tie it back into this. So imagine you're moving to a new place, starting over, feeling really excited about it, but you're also really sad and conflicted. Sad about leaving friends behind, about old things that you've built up. That's very ambivalent. Or what about wanting family time, but feeling a pressure to work more? That's that internal conflict that creates that dissonance and that struggle in our life. So, both of these things describe that discomfort when our beliefs and our behaviors don't line up. I want to talk about a client. I'll call this one Brinley. So, she really believed that her husband was supportive, but then his actions said otherwise. And this clash created a lot of dissonance within her internally. And we talked about that a lot in session. So, remember how I called it cognitive dissonance? It's that mental discomfort when you're holding two conflicting beliefs or behaviors. So I want you to think of it like two guitar strings out of tune. They're just unpleasant until you adjust that a little bit. Now, maybe you don't play guitar, so let me give you an example in real life. It might be a parent that believes in being a little more strict or having a high standard for her kids, but then feels guilty after yelling at them. This also happens when our experiences don't match our expectations of our spouse or our partner, like I just mentioned with my client, Brinley. Another example that pops up with clients is I had one mention that they really value honesty, but then avoids tough conversations. And that tension builds in the relationships because of that. Or maybe you really believe in your relationships, but then you're the one that's always doing the chores. Another thing that I see with clients is sometimes one spouse or partner wants independence while the other one craves togetherness. And setting up boundaries can really help with that, especially when they are not aligned in their values and it's creating that dissonance in the relationship too. So, how do we deal with dissonance and why does it really matter that much? Dissonance isn't always bad and it can push us to grow. Just so many of these things I've talked about, anxiety, depression, all of these things can really be fuel to get us to change in ways that we wouldn't have without that cognitive dissonance. Maybe you're at a point in your relationship where you feel like you are doing pretty well, you're a pretty healthy couple generally. So you can talk about these things openly and adjust your expectations. But maybe you're also on the other side and you're not really sure what to do about that cognitive dissonance. In unhealthy situations like verbal abuse, emotional abuse, it doesn't even have to be very severe, but maybe even there a little bit. And it can cause that dissonance and lead to harmful rationalizations. Leon Vestinger said this: the existence of dissonance, being psychologically uncomfortable, will motivate the person to try to reduce the dissonance and achieve connaissance. Before I studied this, I never really knew what connaissance was, but it's the opposite of dissonance. It's adjusting your life in a way that there is not that discord or that uneasiness, but there's that peacefulness and sense that things are right. Sometimes change is positive, and sometimes it's about coping and making those course corrections. So, again, let's get really clear. How do we manage that dissonance if we experience it in our lives? It really does involve self reflection, open communication, and sometimes getting help from somebody. A lot of people resist getting help, even if it's temporarily from a therapist. But you can tell them, hey, I just want help when something comes up for us, and we just want to schedule a session when there's a struggle we can't really work through and can't seem to see eye to eye on. And many of them will do that. So consider this. This is helping you so that you don't create those bigger wedges in your marriage later and store them up. So you're left with massive resentment and disconnection. Nobody wants that. And you especially don't want it to. So work on those things now. Put aside your pride and be willing to do that. We all do that. And that is what we do to nurture something and make it stronger and better than ever. If you're in need, you're not a failure if you're seeking a third party for guidance and mentoring. That's no different from sports, from food coaching, from personal training, any of it. It's a sign of wisdom and humility. So remember earlier when I used the example about that cognitive dissonance that comes up if we really value honesty and we're lying to our kids about Santa Claus, you might explain the tradition or choose honesty. You might do some journal reflecting or watching some YouTube videos or doing a little bit of research on how to come to terms with those and how you can still honor honesty without blatantly lying to your kids, but putting a little more effort into it. Or what if you really value being patient, but you find yourself yelling at your kids over and over again? Maybe you could explore mindfulness or parenting classes, something so that you are creating a life that is in greater alignment that you really value instead of living in an incongruent way. So let's go back to my client, Brinley, again. She was able to resolve that dissonance by talking openly with her husband and rethinking her expectations. And in doing so, it made her relationship stronger than ever and boosted her self awareness. Now, it didn't mean her problems went away or that she avoided them, but she leaned into them, she explored them, and she figured out what she could do on her side of the street, recognizing that her husband also had a side of the street. And they both made some course corrections so that they could live more in alignment and remove that dissonance in their lives. If you're still not clear what that is, cognitive dissonance is that uncomfortable clash between beliefs and actions. It can cause stress, but it's also a chance for growth, which is what I love. Why I teach so much about positive psychotherapy and learn so much about it because it can be something that can help us instead of being something that we fear. Yes, cognitive dissonance can cause stress, uh, but it's also a chance for growth. It does require communication. It requires self-reflection. So journaling, audio journaling, talking to a trusted friend that's not going to fuel the fire. Any of those things that will help us manage it and work through it instead of just continuing with that cognitive dissonance. My friends, when we do this, we create greater self awareness, greater resilience, greater empathy, and we live a more congruent life instead of feeling like imposters or posers or liars, instead of feeling inauthentic. So this week, notice those moments when you have that dissonance within yourself, that clash between your beliefs and your actions, and take a note of it and do some reflection and explore how you can change that into connaissance, how you can create more harmony in your life instead of that discord. All right, my friends, thanks for joining us today on Fulfillment Therapy. If you are interested in being a part of Fulfillment Therapy team and helping others become their best self, you can go to fulfillmenttherapy.org and sign up to be one of our team members. We are also fast approaching the holiday season, so we are going to have major savings coming up for some of those courses. So if you have been wanting to improve your mental health and wellness for you and your family, those courses are going to be discounted for a very small time starting soon, which I'll announce in the next few weeks. And you can also do that with our courses for starting your own podcast. So check those out soon. You can sign up for our email list and be the very first to get some of those limited spots. And again, all of that will be on fulfillmenttherapy.org. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you back here with a new episode every Monday and Thursday. Until then, my friends. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.